Team Liquid won the $1 Million Grand Slam and are NA CSGO's greatest team of all time. But what if I told you they never even wanted to make this roster in the first place?
We didn't want to replace Zeus or Taco, they just left.
This is the story of Liquid, NA's accidental dynasty. At the end of 2018, Team Liquid had 4 out of the 5 members of their legendary lineup, with comeback king Taco being their 5th.
Actually, I remember one time we were playing against Virus Pro, Nuke, and it was 15-5 to VP, and Fallen said, guys, if you think we are good, let's prove it now. 15-5.
Did we come back?
Of course not. 16-5.
They were ranked at a respectable number 3 in the world at the time, but had one big problem. They had lost to the untouchable Astralis 12 times and had only beat them once. And even that one win was at the Face It Major in a best-of-1 group stage game where they had a 13-2 lead, nearly choked it, and then had to win in overtime. And Astralis didn't take long to get revenge, as they smashed Liquid 2-0 in the playoffs of this very tournament. It basically felt like Astralis were the big brother, picking on the little brother, and occasionally letting him have that one win for fun. The only tournament this Liquid lineup won was Supernova Malta, a smaller tournament with a young Hawka casting. Jesus Christ, who let me walk around with this trim and that shirt? You know what? Let's move swiftly on. Their closest competition was the number 8 ranked NRG, so this win wasn't really that big of a deal.
And finally, a finals for Liquid.
The final tournament of the year was Pro League Finals, and after another loss to Astralis, Taco and Coach Zeus decided they'd had enough finishing 2nd to 4th place, and it was time to leave. Twist himself even says Liquid didn't want to make this roster move.
We didn't want to replace Zeus or Taco, they just left. So you can say that the Liquid era just happened to be that way, and the roster ended up being some dynasty, but it wasn't on purpose.
But with Taco wanting to leave, the straight swap with MIBR for Stewie and picking up Adren to coach just made the most sense.
When 2 people want to leave, sometimes you can't sell a player fast enough, so the organizations have to figure out a way to make a transfer happen, but Adren was free, whereas Stewie was just traded 1-for-1 for with Taco.
The community at the time was pretty down on this move, but this ended up being the start of something special. Adding Stewie wasn't quite the instant success story it's made out to be though, and there were many bumps along the way. And I'm not just talking about fist bumps, if you know what I mean.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Jeez, the comedy on this channel just gets worse and worse. I don't even think my dad would be happy with that joke. They were able to win iBuyPower Masters, the first event of the year, but this event was pretty scuffed, and that's putting it politely.
I think the group stage setups were terrible. Like we're playing like in the rafters where like people are usually sitting like in a club, you know, where they're at their table, and there's people behind us, and the only thing separating us between the crowd and the players is caution tape. And you could hear everything the crowd was saying. So we basically played a BO1 with both teams not having any sound.
This meant that even with Liquid winning the event over Astralis, the community didn't really think this result was legit. But Twist says otherwise.
I'd say absolutely the win counts. I mean, the actual on-stage setup itself, you could not hear the crowd at all. I think the PCs were great. I mean, I think the Charles players themselves were upset after that loss.
This is where things take a turn for the worse though, as Liquid took an unthinkable loss against ENCE on their miracle run at Katowice.
ENCE have done it! They pulled off the upset! The better team today, and ENCE eliminates a tournament favorite.
Looking back, Twist thinks they over-prepared and got in their own heads.
And man, I think we got in our own heads like so bad in the 5 days. I think we over-prepared really bad.
Oh, okay.
We knew everything that they were doing, but we had no game plan for ourselves.
But maybe this was a necessary growing pain going forwards. Liquid would go on to finish 2nd at the next couple of Blast events, losing to FaZe, and no prizes for guessing this one, Astralis again. At this point, some were starting to worry that much like the majority of people who say, new year, new me, it may have been a new year, but it was still the same old second place Liquid. This is where the streak started, with Liquid taking the W at IEM Sydney off the back of an epic 3-2 grand final win over Fnatic and revenge against Taco and MIBR in the semi-final. Side note, I feel like revenge against Taco could only be taken seriously in an esports context, and I love it. Next, they quickly took care of business at DreamHack Dallas by beating ENCE and Furia, and suddenly had 2 of the 4 tournament wins needed for the Intel Grand Slam. In case you're not familiar, to win the $1 million Grand Slam, you have to win 4 out of the most recent 10 elite events. There was an elephant in the room though. Actually, it was a big Danish elephant in the room, as big brother Astralis weren't at either of these events. There was more drama around the corner, as with a packed schedule, Liquid decided to reject an invite to Cologne, not realizing how close to the Grand Slam they'd be. This left them with no choice but to play an online qualifier, which are notorious for upsets. And they even lost the opening match of their group.
Oh, you do hate to see it. Liquid fans are all on their feet and will be sitting back down, unable to fathom what it is we just witnessed. 19-17, the final score after an 11-4 first half. Liquid, you have blew it.
But they were able to bounce back and make the playoffs of the qualifier. In the playoffs, things got scary. At 15-13 on the Decider map with decent utility, this retake was still pretty doable for fours until Almeza lost connection with tragic timing.
Not like this. Not like this.
And so, Liquid survived the scare of almost sabotaging themselves by playing a completely unnecessary qualifier and made it to Cologne. Before that came Pro League, and finally, Astralis were in attendance. After some group stage slip-ups, both teams ended up having to face off against each other way sooner than expected in the quarter-final. Liquid didn't care though. They were happy to finally get the chance to prove themselves and shut everyone up by beating Astralis.
We're beyond happy to win Sydney and DreamHack, but in our mind, we always told ourselves we want to fucking beat Astralis like in playoffs and events.
It came down to the decider map of Vertigo, where Astralis took a big 11-4 lead. But Vertigo was a fairly new map and was seen as very T-sided, so this wasn't over.
11-4. Astralis put up a solid offense.
Yeah, they absolutely do. That's a good scoreline. I'm not sure it's enough. I don't want to call that one yet. We'll see how it goes when we come back for the second half.
Historically, Liquid were a team who had always been labeled as chokers. But I guess they realized something. They realized if you don't have the big lead in the first place, you can't choke. They came back to finally beat Astralis in a series, and at this point, they were undeniable. There was no stopping them in this event, as they went on to take the trophy and put themselves one tournament win away from winning that $1 million Grand Slam. The legendary event they were planning on skipping was now their opportunity to go down in history by winning the Grand Slam in record time of just 57 days. This tournament was different though, as for the first time, Liquid had to handle being the big dog in the yard. And in classic Liquid fashion, things got off to a strange start. In the group stage, Na'Vi were 15-11 up and looks like they had Dust 2 in the back. But in the 3v1, Simple went for the unnecessary knife, Nitro made them pay, and Liquid went on to bring it all the way back to overtime and win the map.
Stewie, he taps on Azu's pistol as well. He's in the open. Stewie's got another pistol. The knife does cost them, and Liquid take the game in overtime. Double overtime at that.
Liquid had somehow gone from being laughed at in the community for being chokers to making the best CSGO player of all time choke himself. In the playoffs, they played and beat Na'Vi again, while their nemesis Astralis couldn't get past the semi-final. That meant they met Vitality and new kid on the block Zai Wu in the grand final. This matchup against Vitality is one that Liquid had actually lost just over a month prior. But by this point, it felt like Liquid were unstoppable. And the rest is history.
It's Team Liquid, and that's what it means to them.
How fitting that the tournament they wanted to skip was the one where the roster who never even wanted to make the move in the first place would go on to cement their legacy and win the Grand Slam. This roster may not have been planned. It may not have been perfect. But it just goes to show that sometimes it's the things that aren't planned, that come together by circumstance, that fall into place perfectly. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I loved making this one. And if you liked it too, check out this video over here I made on Nico and his big miss at the major. YouTube thinks you like this video over here. And if you made it to the end of the video and you enjoyed the content, I would highly appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.